Discovered, her incredible love for the Duke challenged a 200-year family vow to destroy him. Clara Mitchell leaned against the counter of her family's diner, the aroma of fried chicken mixing with the twilight. The warm golden hues spilled through the windows, each ray illuminating the diner's well-worn tables, where laughter mingled with the clattering of dishes. She watched her father, a once proud veteran now visibly worn, manage a bustling crowd while fighting through personal battles the economy had thrown at them. Each day was a balancing act of survival and dreams. When Duke Harrington walked in, a ripple of whispers scattered across the diner like the sound of clinking glasses. Clara's heart raced. He was the heir to the local factory empire, the enemy of her family for generations. Yet his charm flickered like a spark, igniting something within her that she couldn't quite grasp. Perhaps he could bridge the divide forged by years of animosity. Who does he think he is? Clara's mother scoffed, her voice a weighty fog of disapproval as she wiped the counter. The Harringtons have taken enough from us. But Clara couldn't help stealing glances at Duke. Each encounter sparked an unexpected connection. His laughter felt like sunshine breaking through storm clouds, and passion ignited in his proposals for community projects that could revive their struggling town. Each meeting bred hope alongside a burgeoning feeling that sent shivers down her spine. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But the storm was brewing. The town meeting loomed on the calendar, and Clara could feel the tide building against Duke like a building thunderstorm. As neighbors voiced their boiling resentment, Clara's chest tightened. He's just trying to help. She shouted over the din, her words slicing through the tension. The eyes of the townsfolk bore into her, shocked. Can't we do better than this? The tension in the room escalated, not just around the debate, but within her heart. Clara stood at the crossroads, acutely aware of her family's painful history. Voices rose like waves crashing against the shore. He's a Harrington. They brought us to our knees. Her mother declared. But amid the chaos, Clara felt a flicker of something powerful, a resolve to break free from the shackles of the past. As the anger flared, a proposal of unthinkable possibility sparked in her mind. If she could bridge the chasm between her family's pain and the hope she saw in Duke's eyes, maybe they could save their town together. Just as that thought took root, a loud crash echoed from outside, a sign of something terrible happening. Clara's heart dropped, her worst fears creeping in like darkness encroaching on daylight. Could she find the strength to stand against her family's history for a future brighter than the shadows of the past? As the question hung in the air, the realization struck: everything she believed in was about to change, but at what cost? Clara rushed to the window, her heartbeat quickening. Outside, chaos unfolded. A group of angry townsfolk surrounded Duke's car, their faces twisted with rage, shouts filling the air like a cacophony of thunder. "Get out, Harrington! We're done with your lies," they yelled. Panic surged through her veins. Duke was standing there, his expression a mix of defiance and vulnerability. This was supposed to be a community meeting about rebuilding hope, not tearing each other apart. Clara could feel the tension tightening like a noose around her heart. "Mom! Dad!" she shouted, her voice strangled with urgency. "We have to do something. He's not the enemy." Her parents' disbelief was almost palpable. "Clara, you can't get involved with them again. You'll only get hurt." Her mother's voice quaked with fear. "Mom, this is different." Clara sighed, her hands shaking. "He wants to help. We can't keep living like this." Her mind raced with the many conversations she'd had with Duke about dreams, about wanting to heal their fractured community. Why couldn't her family see what she saw? Steeling herself, Clara grabbed her jacket and burst through the diner door, her heart pounding like a drum. As she approached the furious crowd, she felt all eyes turning to her, disbelief morphing into curiosity. Duke's gaze met hers, and there was a flicker of hope there, as if she were his lifeline. "Everyone, listen!" Clara called, her voice breaking through the storm of voices. "This isn't who we are. We need to stop letting anger define us." The crowd wavered, their energy still volatile, but caught off guard by the earnestness in her plea. "Duke wants to rebuild, not destroy. Can we try to meet halfway? Why should we trust him?" shouted a man from the back, his face a mask of hostility. "His family has made our lives miserable for too long. They've taken everything. Maybe it's time for us to change the narrative," Clara pressed, her heart racing with determination. "If we continue this cycle of hate, we're only hurting ourselves. We deserve better. I believe we can build something good together." The crowd murmured, uncertainty rippling through the air. Clara could see some faces soften, a flicker of the humanity they had buried under years of bitterness. But then her mom stepped forward, anger igniting her features anew. "You're putting yourself in danger, Clara. They've never cared about us. Maybe it's time to stop fighting a war that has only been in our hearts," Clara replied, holding her ground, feeling the heat from bodies around her, and yet drawing strength from Duke's unwavering stance beside her. Duke took a step forward, placing a hand on Clara's shoulder, grounding them both. "I know that trust takes time," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "But I'm here to prove that I'm different. You'll see the changes, I promise." There was a long silence, the air thick with tension and the specter of uncertainty looming. Clara held her breath, desperate for something to shift, a sign that her words had found a thread of resonance. And then, from the back of the crowd, an elderly woman spoke up. "What do you propose, Duke?" The voice was soft but firm, slicing through the anger like a ray of light. Duke straightened, sensing the shift. Clara's heart soared, maybe they were getting somewhere. Maybe they could build that bridge after all. As he began to speak, outlining his vision for community projects, Clara felt a swell of hope rise within her. But in the back of her mind lurked the ghosts of the past, whispers of conflict that would not fade easily. The crowd was still tense, and she knew that this was just the beginning. However, the words of the elder hung in the air, a whisper of doubt blurring the edge of promise. But what if the Harringtons have another agenda? Can we really trust the enemy? And there it was, the familiar question that would define everything. Clara glanced at Duke, his face bright with hope, but her heart ached with the weight of what lay ahead. Would love truly be enough to defy a legacy so ingrained? Clara watched as the crowd shifted uneasily, a wave of uncertainty crashing against the fragile hope she had just built. Duke stood beside her, unflinching, but she could feel the energy draining from him, as if he sensed the doubt seeping from that question. The elderly woman's concern sparked a fire behind many eyes, reigniting the deep-seated animosity that had simmered for generations. "Are you ready to back your words, Harrington?" The elderly woman pressed, her voice steady but laced with wariness. "Words mean little if not made real." Duke's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Clara feared he might falter. But then he took a breath, his eyes narrowing with resolve. "I'm prepared to invest in this community. I want to help organize cleanups, create safe spaces for our kids. I want to bring jobs here, real jobs, so no one needs to be forced to leave for work elsewhere." The townsfolk seemed to listen, but Clara could see skepticism etched on their faces. A man from the front yelled, "What's your angle, Duke? I don't buy it. You think you can just waltz in here with your pretty words and make everything okay?" Duke met the man's glare head-on. "You're right to question me. And I don't expect your trust just because I ask for it. I'm asking for a chance to work alongside you, where the rubber meets the road." Clara's heart raced. She could feel the way the air shifted, the tension almost crackling in anticipation. If only they could see how sincere Duke was. If only they could believe that he wanted more than just to sweep the problems under the rug. Why should we believe you? Another woman shouted, her voice thick with emotion. You and your family have caused so much damage. Can you seriously say you're ready to change all of that? The doubts continued to rise, a tidal wave threatening to sweep them away. Clara's throat tightened, she needed to speak again. Every story has a beginning and a middle, she said, finding her voice again despite the fear in her chest. We can't let the past control our future. Let us redefine what it means to be from this town. Together. Duke's eyes sparkled with appreciation, but she could see the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. I'm not just promising to change this town. I promise to be a part of it, to listen, to learn, and to understand the history that has led us here today. Is that enough? Clara murmured for only him to hear, glancing sideways at Duke as those around them began to murmur again, this time softer, more reflective. I hope so, he whispered back, and his eyes held a blend of determination and fear that mirrored her own. The crowd was still tense, but the fierceness of their anger seemed to ebb slightly. Clara caught glimpses of hesitant faces considering his words, old wounds unearthing a seed of possibility. Before she could breathe a sigh of relief, the man who had first shouted his distrust stepped forward again. His fists were clenched, but confusion flickered behind his intensity. All right, Harrington, say you mean what you say. What is your plan? Tell us what real change looks like. Duke took a step forward, his expression firm, as he prepared to outline a tangible path toward healing. Clara's breath caught in her throat. She could see the risk in this moment, the possibility of being thrown into an even deeper well of anger, or perhaps, a chance for something beautiful to grow. But before Duke could speak, Clara's stomach twisted as she spotted a familiar car approaching, dust rising in its wake. The Harrington emblem glistened in the sunlight, and her heart sank. Duke, your family. Duke didn't need to turn, he felt the shift in the crowd, the apprehensive whispers growing louder. Sorry to crash the party, a voice boomed from the car, and Clara felt dread sink deep into her chest as Duke's family emerged, shadows masking their intent. The air hung heavy with tension, as Clara wondered how much more they could bear. Would they finally get the chance for unity, or would the arrival of Duke's family be the beginning of a war neither community could afford to lose? Duke's family stepped into the gathering like thunderclouds, their presence electrifying the air with a mix of anger and apprehension. Clara clenched her fists, her stomach churning. She sensed the crowd's tension spike, curious whispers turning into hasty gasps as the onlookers exchanged nervous glances. Really, Duke? His brother, Michael, scoffed, breaking through the murmurs. You think you can just throw a few words around and earn their loyalty? This town's not a playground for you to fix. Clara watched Duke's face harden, the weight of his family's contempt washing over him. I'm trying to do the right thing. He shot back, his voice fierce but trembling with underlying emotion. Right thing? Michael laughed coldly, his laughter carrying a biting edge. You mean the Harrington way, right? You can't just erase what our family did. Those scars won't heal because you say so. Duke's fists tightened as he looked from his brother to the gathered townsfolk. The disappointment in their eyes was palpable, and Clara could see him wrestling with the history he had been born into, desperately wanting to shake it off. Stop it, Michael. Their father barked, stepping forward with a commanding presence. Don't you dare ruin this for him. Duke's eyes widened, caught between the loyalty of blood and his yearning for redemption. Clara felt a rush of sympathy for him. She could see that he wanted to break free from the chains of his family's legacy. One of the townsfolk, a woman with silver hair who had been silent until now, spoke up, why should we believe anything coming from the Harringtons? Your family has been at the heart of our suffering. Duke's shoulders sagged, and Clara knew she had to intervene. It's true, Clara said, standing tall and stepping a little closer to Duke. The past is dark, but we have a choice to shape our future. Duke's father scoffed at her, but she pressed on with a passion that surprised even herself. Change doesn't come easy, but it's there if we're willing to fight for it. You all know that, she said, her voice rising with urgency. Let's stop this cycle of blame and start building something real. The crowd began murmuring again, some nodding in cautious agreement, while others clung to their resentment. Why bother? A voice cut through the crowd. You think the Harringtons can just buy their way into our hearts? It doesn't work like that. Populations don't just swap old grievances for new, Clara replied, stubborn resolve emerging in every syllable. But for the sake of our children, we have to try. We owe them more than just a repeated history of conflicts. Duke turned toward her, his expression a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. Can we really change this? He asked quietly, as if afraid to believe in the possibility. Just then, his mother stepped forward, her face stern. What your son seeks is folly, she declared, glancing back at the crowd. He will drag you down. You don't know him like I do. You don't know our family. Clara's heart sank as she watched shock ripple through the audience. Duke's family was unraveling the fragile thread of hope that had begun to weave itself together. He took Clara's hand, a gesture of unity, grounding her amidst the chaos. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to see our desire for change, he implored, turning back to the congregation. With a heavy heart, Clara realized this gathering was slipping away. What could she do to reassure the townsfolk, to show them that they were standing at a precipice, ready to leap or fall back into old divisions? The crowd's faces shifted, skepticism battled with curiosity. But in that moment, all Clara could feel was the weight of uncertainty resting heavily upon them all. Could the past truly be shed, or were they forever bound by legacies written in fire? As Duke stared grimly at his family, Clara braced for an answer she feared would reverberate long after it was given. Would there be a bridge built from this fragile moment, or would the divided factions mark another chapter of failure? Just when she thought a resolution was within reach, a low voice broke through the tension, cutting like glass. And what if your family doesn't want to change? What if they'll do anything to stop you? Clara's breath caught, the question hanging in the air like a thunderbolt. She turned to Duke, her heart racing. Would his family betray him? Would their hopes be crushed before they even had a fighting chance? Duke's grip on Clara's hand tightened. It was as if their fingers woven together could forge a shield against the reality of his family's reputation. The air felt electric, charged with raw tension as eyes turned sharply to the voice that had broken the fragile moment. Clara scanned the crowd, searching for the owner of the voice that had awoken the specter of doubt. Who are you to speak of change? It was a man, thick-set with a hard expression that had weathered the storms of life in this town. You come here, all suits and smiles, acting like you care. But we know the truth. He pointed a finger toward Duke, the accusation like a slap. Duke's cheeks reddened, anger sparking in his eyes, but Clara felt a wave of sadness wash over her. She recognized that this was just another chapter in a long story of pain. The townsfolk had every reason to be wary, every reason to hold on to their mistrust. Your family hasn't just been the problem, they've been the root of every issue we've faced. The man shouted, his voice thick with emotion. Others in the crowd began to nod, murmuring their agreement. Clara inhaled deeply, steeling herself. I'm not here to change the past, she declared, her voice steady despite the chaos. But what if we focus on the future? What if we could rebuild together? Duke's mother, once more falling back into position, scoffed loudly. Rebuild? Look around you. Our family's done too much damage for you to even think of that. The crowd was growing restless, stirred by feelings of betrayal, fear, and doubt. Clara swallowed hard, knowing their sense of hopelessness wouldn't vanish overnight. I understand you don't trust us, she continued, her voice cutting through the noise like a beacon. But don't you see? We're trapped in a cycle. If we can't forgive the past, how will we ever find a way to move forward? Silence fell in the crowd, heavy and thick. Clara watched as faces contorted with conflict, some were beginning to consider her words. "I know it seems impossible," Duke said, stepping up beside her, his voice unsteady but passionate. "But if we don't give this a shot, how will we ever know? How can we instill hope in our children?" The murmurs grew, a mixture of uncertainty and intrigue beginning to bloom. Clara could feel the tension shifting. Then another voice rose, quieter but firm. "What if he fails? He has to live with that, too." It was a woman standing close to the front, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, vulnerability peeking through her guarded expression. "Every day is a risk," Clara replied, her heart pounding. "But we have to take them if we want something better. Isn't it worth it to try, for the sake of our community?" The room was heavy with contemplation. Duke's family stood watching, their expressions hardened but every so slightly softened by the weight of the moment. It was a delicate balance, an unsteady truce hanging in the air. "Imagine if one child could say they never lived in the shadows of their parents' mistakes," Clara pressed. "Imagine all of us embracing something new." Duke's father shifted, uncertainty pulling at the corners of his mouth as he exchanged glances with his wife. Clara could see their walls relaxing, just a breath. "I refuse to let fear drive our future," Duke declared, turning toward his parents. "For once, let us choose hope." The air seemed to swell around them, a curtain was rising on a new act. It wasn't just Duke's fate they were weighing, delicate threads of community life hung in the balance, too. The townsfolk were processing, glimmers of courage battling insecurities. Clara held her breath, waiting for the tide to turn her heart a drum in her chest. It was a moment charged with significance, one that could either heal or destroy. Just then, a shadow crossed over Clara's face. She turned, and there in the back stood another figure, watching closely. His eyes glinted not with curiosity but with cold determination. "What if you end up costing more than just trust?" he shouted, the challenge echoing in the solemn hush. Clara exchanged a glance with Duke, the questions swirling in their minds growing sharper by the second. Could they face the unknown, or were they headed toward an even darker chapter? The air crackled with urgency, and Clara realized that the fight for change had just begun. Clara felt the weight of that question sink into her like a stone. The crowd, still buzzing with uncertainty, shifted as they took in the newcomer. He emanated an air of authority, his eyes fierce and unwavering. It was the kind of gaze that made someone feel small, no matter their resolve. Duke's grip on her hand tightened further, as if drawing strength from her. She could sense his instinct to react, to defend himself, but this was not about them, it was about the community, their future, and breaking the chains of the past. Clara took a step forward, her heart hammering in her chest. "We all have our scars," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "We all have our burdens to carry. What's important is how we decide to move forward. If we let the darkness of past mistakes hold us back, we'll never see the light of what could be." The man in the back crossed his arms, his skepticism palpable. "And what will that cost us?" His tone was ice, slicing through the thick air like a knife. "You think it's as simple as sharing a few encouraging words?" Clara's heart raced. "No, it's not simple. It never is. But change takes courage. I believe many of you want something better, that's why you're here." The crowd fell silent again, her words hanging like a delicate thread. Duke stepped closer to her, his voice unexpectedly steady. "I know my family's reputation is a burden, but we can't ignore the possibility of creating new legacies. Together." His words echoed in the dim room, hitting home for many as they sketched glimmers of hope. A murmur rose, not entirely convincing yet, but it was a start. Clara could see the wheels turning in the faces around her, the parents who had feared for their children, the friends who had fallen apart, now contemplating the idea of unity. What if things go wrong? The woman reappeared in the front, casting a hopeful but wary glance toward Duke. What if it all comes crashing down? What if, Duke replied, his intensity shining through, we walk through that door and discover there is strength in vulnerability. What if we gain something we never thought possible? His eyes sparkled as he glanced at Clara, who beamed back, feeling the spark of connection ignite between them. Clara took a breath, sensing the palpable shift in atmosphere. This is our chance to rise above fear, to sponsor hope instead of hate. Imagine a community where children can learn to trust, where we can learn to trust. Isn't that worth taking a risk? Slowly, Clara saw heads nodding, a few breaking free from the heavy ties of mistrust. The man in the back remained motionless, but dueling emotions flitted across his face. Just as Clara felt a flood of warmth and possibility, a voice erupted once more. You're asking for a lot. But how do we know you won't leave us hung out to dry when it suits you? Clara's pulse quickened. This was a turning point. Trust is earned, she acknowledged, the fire in her belly coaxing her confidence. But it's also a leap of faith. We must be willing to hold each other accountable and work through the struggles that lie ahead. Duke's father straightened, eyes narrowing as he weighed his options. You've given us a vision, he said slowly, but promises can easily fall apart. I won't allow my family to drown in mere words. Then let us build something together, Clara implored, her heart racing with urgency. We can lay down the first stone towards a bridge instead of a wall. Silence enveloped them like a thick fog. Clara felt every gaze land heavily on her, waiting for confirmation of what they would decide. Duke leaned in, whispering to Clara, "Do you think we can really do it?" Clara nodded, the spark of hope igniting in her chest once more. We can, if we're willing to accept the challenge. It's just the beginning. That shadow in the back shifted, his expression unreadable. There was no telling what he might do next. Clara's stomach churned with the uncertainty as she prepared for whatever came next. Would they choose the path of unity, or were deeper roots of division yet to be uncovered? The air hung thick with unresolved tension, and Clara's heart raced at the possibilities swirling around them. What would it take to turn fear into hope, bitterness into acceptance? The answer loomed, yet eluded her grasp. The silence that followed Clara's words stretched on, thick with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Clara's breath quickened as she surveyed the crowd, searching for any signs of agreement, any flicker of hope. She desperately needed them to see that this wasn't just a speech, it was a lifeline. Finally, a voice rose from the crowd. How can we trust you? Trust isn't something you just promise. It was a tall man with deep lines etched on his face, each wrinkle a testament to the weight he carried for years. The crowd shifted, eyes darting between him and Clara, unsure what to expect next. Clara felt her heart sink, but she refused to falter. I can't ask you to trust me blindly. Trust must grow slowly, nourished by transparency and action. That's what I'm offering. Duke's grip tightened around her hand, a silent show of support. She glanced at him, feeling the warmth of his presence steadying her resolve. Was it too much to hope for a real change? We've been let down before, the woman who had questioned their road forward added. Broken promises have left scars. How do we know this time won't be different? Because change isn't just about promises, it's about commitment. Clara raised her voice, letting the passion spill out. We'll be here to help each other through. Together, we can build what's broken. Another murmur rippled through the crowd, questioning and considering in equal measure. Clara could see some people whispering to one another, visibly torn between their fears and the glimmer of possibility in her words. What do you suggest we do first? The question came from a young woman near the front. Clara could see a flicker of hope in her eyes, and she seized the moment. Let us start small. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the crowd lean in, intrigued. What if we hold regular community meetings? A space where everyone can voice their concerns and ideas. A space to connect and remind ourselves that we're not alone in this fight. Meetings? A man scoffed. Just talking won't change anything. True, Duke chimed in, his voice filled with conviction. But those talking spaces are where we build understanding. Where we begin to heal old wounds. We need these connections to bridge the gaps. And in the midst of that, we can create initiatives, Clara continued, feeling the momentum swell around her. Programs for families. Workshops for our kids. Let us involve everyone. Clara's heart raced as she saw some heads nodding. Change happens when we gather our voices, share our stories, and meet each other halfway. But the man in the back still stood motionless, arms crossed tight against his chest. Clara's pulse quickened again. What was he thinking? After a moment that stretched painfully long, he finally spoke. You make it sound easy, but love for family is a hard thing to break. My family isn't perfect, Clara said with a fierce resolve. But if we don't fight for a better future today, their pain will never end. We owe it to ourselves, our children, to build something that matters. Tension hung like a heavy cloud as Duke turned to her, his eyes filled with admiration but also uncertainty. He could feel the stakes, just as Clara did. Will the past always overshadow us? Duke murmured just loud enough for her to hear, his brow furrowing. Clara met his gaze, anchored by their shared fears. Together, we can create something new. But we need the courage to step into the unknown. The crowd was now a tempest of murmurings, some voices rising in agreement, while others remained skeptical. Clara's heart pounded, hope mingling with fear. Would they truly take the leap with her? Just then, a child's voice piped up from the back. I want a place to play. A place that isn't scary. The collective breath of the crowd caught in their throats. The innocence of that child's plea laid bare everything they were all feeling. Clara's heart twinged at the rawness of it. A place to play, it was a simple desire, but for so many, it felt impossibly out of reach. Duke leaned closer, despair flickering in his eyes. Maybe it starts with that child. What if they are the key to breaking the cycle? Clara nodded slowly, a plan melding in her mind. We focus on them. Create something just for them, let it radiate through the community. Let their laughter be our first step towards healing. But just as she began to feel that spark ignite again, the man in the back took a step forward, his voice dripping with skepticism. And what makes you think it won't all just crumble like before? The room froze, all eyes drawn to him, all breaths held. His confidence shook her foundation. Would her vision truly hold? As she stood there, exposed and vulnerable, Clara felt the imminent weight of what they could face together, and the raw challenge of what lay ahead. Who would dare to take that first real step into uncharted territory? And would Clara's hope for their future withstand another storm? Clara's heart raced as the crowd remained silent, eyes fixed on her, uncertain yet eager. The weight of their expectations pressed heavily on her shoulders. This was the moment she had envisioned, yet it felt stark and frightening. She felt like a ship lost in a storm, desperately searching for a lighthouse. Please, Clara began, her voice steady despite the tremor within. We need to lay the first brick together. It starts now, with our children. With their laughter. But the man wasn't done. And what if it's all a waste, Clara? What if they laugh one day and cry the next because we were too naive to build on solid ground? The truth of his words shot through her like a cold wind. Were they truly ready to uproot years of pain and disappointment? Clara fortified her stance. Then we'll confront that too. Every tear matters just as much. We can't let fear paralyze us. A few heads nodded, but she still sensed that hesitation in the air. Duke squeezed her hand tighter, a subtle reminder that she wasn't alone in this. What if we take that first step? The young woman who had originally asked about meeting spoke again. Her voice wavered, but her determination was palpable. Can we set a date? Can we really try? Yes. Clara's enthusiasm spilled out, a burst of light trembling in the dark. Let's meet next week. We'll discuss ideas, gather thoughts, and maybe we could even brainstorm a design for that playground." At the word playground, Clara saw some faces brighten, especially a young father who had been holding his shy daughter protectively. "A safe place for our kids?" he asked, hopeful. "A real place where they can play without fear?" "Yes," Clara affirmed, her energy charging the atmosphere. "Where laughter fills the air, where stories are shared, and friendships are born. It can be the heart of our community." Then suddenly, the man at the back took a few steps forward, uncertainty etched on his face. "I have kids too," he admitted, his voice softer now, vulnerability breaking through his tough exterior. "If this is truly for them, I'll think about it. I'll come to the meeting." A collective sigh of relief floated through the crowd. Clara felt the gradual shift of energy, like a seed sprouting through a crack in concrete. Maybe, just maybe, they were on the brink of something real. Duke turned to Clara, a proud smile breaking across his face. "You did it," he whispered, pride shimmering in his eyes. She felt her heart swell, but she knew this was just the beginning. "Let us not celebrate just yet," Clara cautioned, taking a deep breath. "This was one small step. We need to prepare for the hard stuff too. What if some people still don't want to join us?" As if on cue, a woman in the front row spoke up. "I'll come if you promise to listen." "If you promise this isn't just another meeting with empty words." Clara nodded fiercely, her voice steady. "I promise we will listen. We are all in this together, or we won't move forward at all." Finally, the atmosphere began to buzz with tentative excitement, ideas bubbling, possibilities sprouting. Clara felt hope unfurling inside her like a flower soaking in the sun. "All right, we'll meet here next week. Let us spread the word. Tell your friends, your families. We'll do this." As people began to filter out of the hall, a buzz of energy followed. Clara glanced at Duke, who was grinning from ear to ear. The moment felt electric, a spark igniting in the heart of the crowd, but Clara's stomach churned with anticipation. Was it really enough to change their destiny? Just as she turned to leave, a soft voice called out. "Clara! Wait!" It was the young girl from earlier. A chill ran down Clara's spine as she glanced back. "What is it?" The girl hesitated, her small hand gripping the hem of her shirt. "What if they don't listen? What if they don't come?" Clara crouched down, meeting the girl's earnest gaze. "Then we keep trying. We don't give up." But uncertainty gnawed at her words. In that moment, as she looked into the girl's wide, hopeful eyes, Clara felt the weight of their dreams resting heavily on her. Would she have the strength to hold them together when the storms inevitably returned? Clara spent the next few days in a whirlwind. The meeting loomed over her, and amidst the preparation, doubt slithered in like an unwelcome guest. She drafted notes, organized ideas, and reached out to parents in the community. Yet, when she stopped to breathe, worry would tighten her chest. What if no one came? What if they gathered only to tear down her dreams? Duke noticed her unease. He would often wrap an arm around her shoulders, whispering words of encouragement. "You're sparking change, Clara. This is what they need. What we need." He held her gaze, unwavering faith shining in his eyes. His belief pulled her up, like a lifeline tossed during a storm, reminding her she was not alone in this. Every evening, Clara returned to her small kitchen, the warm glow of the lights casting a soft ambience. She would brew chamomile tea, trying to calm the racing thoughts in her mind. She flipped through sketches of playground designs, her imagination filled with bright colors and laughter. Each line was a promise, each curve a whisper of hope. But when Thursday arrived, Clara's heart pounded in a way that felt like the beginning of a race. She approached the community center's doors with hesitation, a tide of anxiety swelling around her. Would she greet disappointment instead of excitement? Inside, she caught sight of a few familiar faces, parents she had talked to, some who had voiced doubts but still showed up. And then she saw the young girl from earlier, her wide eyes sparkling with curiosity, sitting right in the center, hands fidgeting in her lap. "Hey there." Clara knelt down in front of her, admiration blooming in her chest. "I'm so glad you're here." "I wanted to see what happens," the girl said, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara smiled, her heart warmed, the connection feeling essential. "I'm glad you're with us. We're going to dream together." As the room filled, Clara felt a pulse, like the soft beat of a heart. More people than she dared hope began to filter in. Whispers ignited conversations, voices blending into a symphony of shared laughter and apprehension. Clara took a deep breath, letting the anxious energy push her forward. She took the center stage, her voice steady, an anchor amidst the growing tumult. "Thank you all for coming. Today is the day we can really start imagining what we want for our kids." To her surprise, hands shot up, and ideas flowed like a rushing river. Someone suggested swings, another proposed slides, and discussions sparked about benches for the parents to sit on. Clara felt the current of excitement picking up, wrapping around her and fueling her hope. Yet, amidst all the jubilant exchanges, Clara spotted the man who had challenged her during the last meeting. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, shadows of skepticism etched on his face. Clara's heart dropped slightly, her previous confidence wavered. "Can we really pull this off?" he called out, his voice echoing with doubt. "What if it all fades, like it always does?" Clara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "If it fades," she replied, "we'll start again. We'll learn from it. But we have to try." Silence followed as everyone absorbed her words. The room felt heavy, uncertainty hanging like the last note of a melody. Clara caught the eye of the young girl again, and her small nod of encouragement reignited Clara's fire. Duke stepped closer, his supportive presence grounding her. "Every moment of doubt is a chance to grow. Let us build on what's possible." With a deep breath, she looked around, meeting eyes filled with hesitance yet hinting at hope. "Let us make this happen, together." Applause broke the tension, a wave of hope coursing through the room. Yet, as the meeting rolled into ideas becoming plans, Clara's gaze returned to the man. "You'll come to help, won't you? Be a part of this?" His eyes softened for a moment, but uncertainty lingered. I guess we'll see." Clara's heart sank, knowing the journey was just beginning. The scales were not yet balanced. As chatter resumed, transformed into shared laughter, Clara felt hope renewed but couldn't shake the feeling that another storm loomed ahead. What if his hesitation reflected the feelings of many others? Would she be able to change their minds and inspire them? The question loomed as the meeting pressed on. Clara knew they had steps to take, shadows to confront. Would the roots of fear take hold once more? The days turned into weeks, and the air was thick with anticipation and determination. Clara, fueled by her dreams and the faces of the community, pushed forward. The playground project gained momentum, morphing into something tangible, a symbol of hope. Fundraisers sprouted like wildflowers, with Clara leading the charge, rallying the townspeople together. Every Saturday morning, the community center filled with laughter and chatter. Neighbors who had once whispered bitter words at each other now painted murals, baked treats for fundraisers, and laughed over shared memories. Clara watched it all with a slowly warming heart, pride swelling with each paintbrush stroke. Yet, amid the transformation, Clara couldn't shake the lingering presence of doubt that had been brewing in the eyes of some. The man who had questioned her remained skeptical, his arms still crossed every time Clara hosted a meeting. "Words aren't enough," he would mutter, piercing the heart of her optimism. Clara felt the weight of that doubt. One evening, after another lively planning session, Clara found herself sitting on a bench outside the diner, staring into the twilight sky. The colors bled into one another, mirroring the emotions swirling inside her. Duke settled beside her, sensing the tension. "You're doing amazing things, Clara," he said softly. "Look how far we've come." "I know," but Clara sighed, fingers twisting a lock of hair absent-mindedly. What if it all crumbles? What if the others don't truly believe in this? That skepticism. Duke took her hand, his grip steady. You're planting seeds. It takes time for them to grow. Remember, every plant needs nurturing. You can't rush the process. With his words, Clara's spirit flickered a little brighter. Hope could be nurtured, just like their community. But as the crowd gathered at the next meeting carrying ideas of games, Clara spotted the man again, his expression unreadable. Tonight, I want to talk about accountability, she announced, her voice strong even as her heart raced. We're not just building a playground, we're creating a stronger community. We must hold each other accountable. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She glanced at the man, whose brow furrowed. Accountability goes both ways, right? He replied sharply. What happens if you don't follow through? What happens next time when we need you? Clara swallowed, the scars of doubt clawing at her resolve. If we fail, she began, feeling every eye upon her. We'll regroup. We can't let fear push us back into silence. If we learn from mistakes, we can grow. Another voice chimed in, but what if we're just wasting our time? Clara took a deep breath, leaning into her conviction. Nothing worthwhile ever comes easy. The past has shown us its darkness. Let us choose to build something brighter. And let us do it together, remembering that real success is in our commitment to one another. She could see some heads nodding, a slight shift in the air as vulnerability settled around them. Even the skeptic met her gaze, his lips pursed but his eyes searching for something more. Then the young girl from before piped up, I really want the playground. It'll be fun. That innocence cracked the wall of doubt, laughter bubbling through the crowd. The skeptic's expression softened, the shadows lifting, if only a little. As the meeting folded into planning sessions for the community's future, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was just the beginning of their journey together. They were not merely raising a playground, they were building bridges. Weeks passed, and the community rallied. Clara met with families, turned hammers, and painted fences with Duke by her side. Their hands ached, but their hearts swelled as laughter echoed through the air. On the day of the playground's unveiling, Clara stood nervously beside Duke. The sun beamed down brightly, illuminating the colors of their new playground. The faces of friends and families brightened with excitement. As they counted down to the ribbon cutting, Clara glanced around. The once skeptical man stood in the crowd. She could feel his gaze, and for the first time, he smiled, a glimmer that sparked hope. 3, 2, 1. Clara announced, and as the ribbon fluttered through the air, cheers erupted. Children dashed toward swings and slides, laughter painting the air like vibrant hues. Clara felt tears stinging her eyes, a mixture of disbelief and gratitude swirling in her heart. Duke stepped beside her, arms outstretched, offering his embrace. We did it, he whispered, pulling her close. She let the joy bury her worries, the warmth of community enveloping her. They had fought together, dared to believe, and had rebuilt the bonds that had once been broken. As Clara watched the children play, she felt a renewed conviction fueling her heart. Change was possible. Together, they would forge a new story, a legacy defined by love instead of pain. And standing at the heart of that playground, she knew in that moment that hope was not just a fleeting moment, it was the very fabric of their future. Clara took a deep breath, ready to embrace the journey ahead, knowing they were just getting started. Now, more than ever, she needed to share this message. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next chapter of incredible stories that awaken our hearts and inspire change. This is the moment to show your support and engage with our community. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this positivity flowing. Comment below with your reactions, your thoughts, and how this journey of change has impacted you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the spark of transformation. Help us spread the hope. Together, let us rewrite the story.